Welcome to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of Deep South Texas. Got a great program lined up for you today. In just a little bit, our San Diego correspondent, Salvador Rivera, is going to be bringing us a discussion with immigration attorney William Menard. So make sure to stick around for that. Going to be very eye-opening as always. But let's go ahead and start today's edition by taking a look at what's trending across the border and staying right here in the Rio Grande Valley to kick it off. Today, we're getting our first reactions from state-level officials on the reporting that Julian Resendiz, our El Paso correspondent, brought us yesterday, and that is Mexico saying that they are going to start paying up on that water debt owed to the United States per that 1944 treaty. So today, down here in South Texas, actually just a few moments ago, acting Texas Comptroller Kelly Hancock was at the port of Brownsville in Brownsville, Texas today in response to a question about the ongoing water battle with the country of Mexico. She had to say this, quote, "What we've seen in the agricultural areas, specifically in South Texas, has been somewhat devastating, and we've got to resolve it." So to have President Trump step up and recognize, number one, that Texas is vital in the nation's economy and our agriculture is vital to Texas, it is what people think about when they think about Texas, and we cannot do that without water. So we're actually putting this story together right now, so you'll have more on this on borderreport.com a little later this evening. But let's continue on by taking a look at what's trending across the border. And going back to Chicago, you might remember we told you this week how a top Border Patrol chief is back in Chicago to oversee the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Well, we've now learned that Operation Midway Blitz is still officially underway in the Chicago area. Now, Chief Gregory Bavino left the area earlier this year, and hundreds of agents followed him. But now Homeland Security told our sister station, WGN in Chicago, that the immigration enforcement operation will continue. You're looking at video of one such incident and another incident there involving Border Patrol agents in Chicago. An Illinois congresswoman says she was told ICE is planning to at least triple their staff by January, just a couple weeks from now. They told her that they were also preparing to add more office space near the city. Now, the beginning of the operation in the fall was noted for its widespread clashes between agents and protesters that you've been seeing on your screen right now, including Chief Bavino right there yelling at that individual before what looks to be throwing him to the ground. So as those protesters call for an end to the immigration raids. Much different scene in San Francisco, where around 100 people took part in a demonstration outside the federal immigration building. They blocked two of the entrances. Demonstrators voiced their opposition to the immigration detentions taking place in California by painting murals on the road. And you can see one right there, "Love thy neighbor, disrupt injustice." Now, the protesters did not get in the way of people lining up for their immigration appointments. Police and immigration officers were stationed nearby as a precaution. Now, back down here to Deep South Texas, an immigration rights advocacy group here is handing out kits filled with step-by-step instructions for their members on what to do if they or someone they know is detained by ICE. And as Sandy Torres reports, some people say they're starting to fear for our local communities.
I definitely feel afraid, not for me, but for my neighbors. We know the situation that they're living. It is a persecution.
Ramiro Davila is a U.S. citizen that has called San Juan his home for 24 years. He says he still visits the other side of the border and tells us he knows others don't have that same luxury and are too afraid to even step outside their home. However, Davila says they have no choice.
They cannot afford to stop working. What can they do?
Davila says this is why knowing your rights when encountering immigration officers is key. La Unión del Pueblo Entero, or LUPE, is going door to door in this neighborhood to hand out these kits, compiled with a breakdown of resources and rights.
We know that ICE is very rampant in our communities right now. It could be while you're driving, it could be while you're working, it could be while you're on your way to church.
Lupe says these resources are specifically crafted for the Valley. This card guides people on how to protect themselves.
Making sure you stay quiet, as is your Fifth Amendment right. It's in English and in Spanish. We also have mental health resources for anyone that has been impacted by the recent ICE raids as well. And in the back, we also have information about local detention centers and their phone numbers, which you can call as well.
Those with lupus say every knock makes a difference. It doesn't matter what your legal status is.
If you see it from a big picture, this is an abuse of power from the government. It's the federal government saying, we do not trust our people and we are going to surveil them, we're going to detain them.
As for Davila, he says this kit, or guia, is the first step to planning ahead.
That is what this kit is for them to be aware. Who will they leave the children with? The children are the ones suffering. They are separating them.
And that was Sandy Torres reporting in San Juan, Texas, here in the Rio Grande Valley. Continuing on with a look at your headlines of what's trending across the border. The assistant manager of a convenience store in Kenner, Louisiana, apparently knew his rights when he turned away several Border Patrol agents just a few days ago. Now, Dwayne Davis locked the doors on agents, including Commander Gregory Bovino, refusing to let them in. That is the Commander Bovino right there. He said he asked them what they were doing at his store through the glass door, but the agents never responded. Davis said he had a Hispanic customer and a Hispanic coworker inside the store at the time the agents showed up, and they were both worried. He admits taunting the agents, but he says he did his research and knew what he could say and do if agents ever showed up. Immigration attorneys say unless the agents have a warrant, they can be denied entry into a store, which is private property. And speaking of immigration attorneys, stay with us because we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, our Salvador Rivera is going to be bringing us a discussion with immigration attorney William Menard. So make sure to stick around for that. Border Report Live is back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mirel. It's time now to bring in our San Diego correspondent, Salvador Rivera, and our guest for today's program, immigration attorney William Menard. And I wanted to start off, Mr. Menard, by asking about that last story we heard just before the break. Aside from the taunting of the agents that this gentleman did at that convenience store, is that kind of the usual practice that these people who want to protect the rights of maybe coworkers or customers that come into their places of business should be taking? You are an immigration attorney, so I just kind of wanted to hear what your thoughts on that is.
Yeah, absolutely. The most important thing for people to know is that, ICE, like any other federal agent, doesn't have the right to come into your home without a search warrant. And, in the vast majority of cases, immigration officers don't have search warrants. So it is the right of a property owner, whether it's your home or a business, to refuse to allow officers to come onto your property unless they provide proof that they have a search warrant. And so I think it's really important for people to know that, particularly with respect to their homes, that they don't have to let an officer in unless they provide proof of that warrant.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll let Sal take over. I'm sure he's got many more questions to ask. So, Sal?
Well, how busy are you and other immigration attorneys at this point?
It's extremely busy. The cases, as people may have seen across the country, there's just been an increase in arrests in various settings, whether it's at businesses, whether it's near people's homes, as the previous segment was getting to. There's also people being arrested even at their immigration interviews, like when they go to green card interviews, that they're being arrested. We've heard anecdotally about people being arrested at biometrics appointments where they go to get their fingerprints taken while they're in the process of applying for something. So there's been a significant increase in arrests and detentions. So we're getting a lot more cases of people who are in court and who are in jail.
You are hearing about, and something you have witnessed and are dealing with one client, as people get arrested, they are threatened with deportation to be sent to a third world country for asylum. Describe what's going on there and the specific case that you have. I believe it was a gentleman from Syria, and he's being threatened with deportation to Uganda, of all places.
Yes, that's right. And it's not just Syria; it's multiple countries. There are about a month ago, or maybe even less, immigration enforcement attorneys, so the trial attorneys that work for the Department of Homeland Security, they've been sending out notices saying that they are seeking to prevent people from applying for asylum with the immigration court because they're saying that they can deport them to a country where the U.S. has an agreement set up. So basically, the U.S. set up an agreement with Uganda, and I don't know the total number, maybe 8, 10 other countries that said that they are willing to accept a certain number of foreign nationals that aren't from that country. So we've gotten several notices about many of our clients saying, we're going to, so you may be from the Middle East or from somewhere else, but we're going to deport you to Uganda. And then all they're providing is a copy of the agreement that the U.S. government has with Uganda. So we're now having to fight those in court. Again, it's an ongoing process right now. This really only ramped up about a few weeks ago. So we'll have to see how this plays out.
Are they saying, well, you want asylum, we'll give it to you, but it's just not going to be in the U.S.? Is that sort of like the tone that the U.S. government is taking towards asylum seekers?
It actually, Sal, it's not even that. What they're saying is that these various countries, they've confirmed, meaning the U.S. Department of State has confirmed that they have procedures in place to process asylum applications. So essentially, we would be, we meaning the U.S. government would be deporting them to that country for them to proceed with their asylum application there. But of course, the person that's been applying for asylum in the U.S. has no idea how that process is going to work in that other country, and frequently people applying for asylum here have they have family here. They've been here for several years. They've been in the process for a while. They set up communities. So now they're just being kind of sent somewhere else to figure it out there. That's an extremely scary situation to be in.
Well, in general, if you have been deported, what are your chances of coming back? What are the chances of your family doing something or hiring an attorney such as yourself to get you back into the U.S.?
There are ways of coming back. It just becomes much more difficult. Once you're physically outside the country, under most circumstances, you're prevented from coming back to the U.S. for 10 years. So it would be even 10 years before you could even apply to return. And there are exceptions, like if you have a U.S. citizen spouse or other kind of close family members, there may be a way to come back earlier, but generally that's the situation. It is very difficult to come back.
Mm-hmm. We have talked about how people are getting arrested, and you just mentioned that a little while ago. They're getting picked up at their interviews and or biometrics appointments. Can people defend themselves? What's the best way to protect themselves? Do you recommend not showing up or showing up with an attorney? What's the best course of action for anyone who does have an appointment coming up?
Yeah, the best situation is if you have an immigration appointment, asylum interview, court date, green card interview, anything like that. If there's any concern whatsoever in your case, like you've ever been out of status, you're in pending status, anything at all, I recommend bringing an attorney with you, and also bringing a family member with you if that's a possibility. What I've noticed, for instance, is in a previous or recent case, there was someone who was arrested at an ICE interview, and then they had several pieces of property that they kept with them that were then not returned to them after they were released from detention. So they were there for about 2 weeks, and then when they were released, they didn't get it back. So at least if you bring someone with you, you can kind of make sure that you give them all your belongings and everything, so that doesn't get taken to the prison. And also you want people there to observe what's happening, both a lawyer and a family member, to say, that they've seen what happened, that they know kind kind of the circumstances that you're in, and then can more quickly be able to help you get out of detention. So I definitely recommend both an attorney and family members be with you.
And the chances of you winning your case or avoiding deportation is actually, it does go up dramatically when you are represented by an attorney, an experienced lawyer such as yourself. So not just to promote your services or what you do, but you do see it. Statistics show that anybody with an attorney has a better chance of winning their case, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you're represented, particularly in immigration court, you have a much higher likelihood of getting your case won. First of all, I think that's for two reasons. First is, the attorneys know what types of evidence and arguments to make on a particular case, whether that's asylum or an application for a green card, but also knows of what the alternatives are. So a lot of people think that, if they go to immigration court, that they probably have to apply for asylum, but that's not always the case. That there are several other types of applications that you can make to stay here, but most people who aren't familiar with the immigration system don't know what those are. So it's the job of the attorney to make sure that the person knows all their available options. And if they do have to leave the country, what's the fastest way for them to come back? So it's really about kind of planning all the next steps and making sure there are alternatives available.
Mhm. Well, let me put you on a spot. Last week, we did a story about an ICE watch list. Apparently, there's many, many attorneys, immigration attorneys, who showed up on this list. And apparently, the White House, Department of Homeland Security, is asking that there be some sort of action taken against these lawyers for defending, abating immigrants. By any chance that your name show up on that list? And what do you think about this watch list? And I guess there's an implied threat to anybody on this list.
Well, it's certainly an implied threat to not continue to do your job. I'm not aware. I should probably check again. I'm not aware if I'm on that list. I haven't seen it yet, but I'll check again. But it's an intimidation tactic. It's to try to get people to not do not do their job, not try to help people that need it. This has been around for longer than the Trump administration, that people could pop up on lists. But before, there was like avenues where you could apply to get your name off the list, just prove that it was a mistake or things like that. But right now, it's clear that that's unlikely to happen because this is a targeting effort. It's trying to stop people from doing their job. So if you apply to get off the list, that's unlikely to happen. So all I can say is that I don't think that most attorneys will stop doing their job. I think they know what their obligations are to their clients and everything, and hopefully these intimidation factors stop.
We heard earlier about how ICE is planning to add a lot more agents, federal agents, to their enforcement operations in Chicago and other parts of the country. That means more people will get arrested, more people will end up in court. You foresee, are you planning, are you gearing up to be even busier than you have been in the coming year?
Well, we're gearing up not only to kind of handle more cases, but also to change how we handle the cases. A lot of these, what's happening right now is that there's an increase in the number of people in court, and there's been a decrease in the number of judges. As you've seen in the news, many judges are getting fired or they're retiring, earlier than expected. So that's not a good situation where the number of cases go up and the judges go down in a system that almost has 4 million kind of a 4 million person backlog. That's never a good situation. So these cases are having to be dealt with differently. There's the trials aren't as long or as detailed. The cases are being handled more on paper than in person. There's a lot less communication that we have with the government. So a lot of the arguments now are going to have to be substantial and made in writing, because the judges really just aren't having as many hearings. They're not giving as much time to each case. It used to be even 5-6 years ago that I could go to the office of like an immigration attorney, like for the attorneys for ICE, and just talk to them and try to negotiate how this case was going to go. Now you don't get any communication. There's no back and forth. Nobody's talking to you. There's no negotiations. There's no trying to figure the situation out. So it makes our job more difficult, and we just have to adjust for that. At least, I expect for the next 3 years.
Does this make it harder for a person who has a case going or is facing deportation to get real justice?
Yeah, it does, because there are many situations where, as I mentioned before, I could just call the other attorney and say, look, this is what's going on. This is the client situation. Do you really need to have a full trial about this? Do you need to challenge anything? It's pretty clear from the evidence. And if it really was, they would just not even challenge it. And if they knew it was a good case, that doesn't happen anymore. So all these cases that could be disposed of quickly are getting delayed because you can't talk to the other attorney, and because the judges are just continuing all the cases. They don't have time to do their caseload. It's just not possible given the number of judges and the number of cases. So everything is getting pushed off, and people's access to justice is just getting more and more delayed.
Mm-hmm. How many cases are turning out with a positive income from your point of view, as opposed to somebody losing their cases? And I know you probably don't know all the statistics in the world, everything that's going on in courts around the country, but what's happening in terms of what percentages of people, roughly rough numbers, who are getting to stay as opposed to those who are losing their cases and facing deportation?
Well, Sal, that has a lot to do with the judge. If you go onto a website called TRAC, TRAC, that website gives you percentages of each judge of what they approve or deny for, particularly for asylum cases. So you'll see some judges that have very high approval ratings, sometimes 90% or something like that. And then you'll see judges that have an approval rating of 2 or 1%. I highly doubt that has to do with the type of case that they're getting, but more with how they're interpreting the law. And so, unfortunately, I think your access to justice and how quickly you'll get it and what kind of relief you'll get often comes down to just the luck of the judge that you get.
We've been speaking with immigration attorney William Menard on a whole host of topics this afternoon. Unfortunately, we are now out of time, but we wanted to say thank you for joining us today, Mr. Menard.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Rudy, Sal. Great to talk to you.
All right. We'll see you later. And as for you at home, stay with us. Border Report Live is back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles here in Harlingen, Texas. Our guest who was here before we took that quick break just a moment ago was immigration attorney William Menard, and he mentioned something interesting while he was talking with me and our San Diego correspondent Salvador Rivera a moment ago. He mentioned that you can always look up certain statistics on TRAC. That's also known as the Transactional Research Access database, and you can get more on that at tracreports.org. But one of our guests earlier in the week, on Monday, our South Texas correspondent Sandra Sanchez, we had on Austin Coker, who has a hand in getting those data points out to the public. So thought that was an interesting connection. Just kind of goes to show the type of conversation that we have here on Border Report Live. And if not a better time than ever right now to remind you that you can stay informed on the story shaping the U.S.-Mexico border while you're on your commute. Maybe you're at the grocery store, maybe you're getting a workout in at the gym, taking the dog out for a walk, because Border Report Live brings you real-time updates, expert insights, and voices from both sides of the border in audio form. You can now listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, and you can get us in video and audio form on the YouTube app. Well, that is going to do it for us today. For San Diego correspondent Salvador Rivera and myself here in Harlingen, Texas, Rudy Mireles, we thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.